Hi there, you're listening to the Guitar Speak podcast, the show I produce in Sydney, Australia, where I speak to leading guitarists and guitar figures from all around the world. My name's Matt Wakeling, and thank you so much for joining me for episode number 100. Alright, I don't usually play on the show, but you know, it's a special occasion, so a couple of celebratory guitar licks could be in order. But seriously, thank you to the listeners that we have all around the world. It's very humbling to know this show over the last 2 and a bit years has reached so many people, and my huge thanks and appreciation go out to you, our listeners, and also our wonderful guests that have got us to this point. Here's to 100 more episodes, hey? Now today we speak to our friend Mike Molenda, who you might remember from episode number 39 when we spoke in depth about his role as senior editor at Guitar Player magazine, a role he held for over 2 decades. Now today, Mike speaks candidly about what went down when Guitar Player magazine's new owners no longer had a place for him and other full-time staff. Mike tells us about his exciting new project, The Guardians of Guitar, which will be full Molenda mode without commercially imposed restrictions. How he continues to say yes to new opportunities, why he's still as committed to evangelising the guitar as ever before, and what he learnt from Captain Kirk from the Starship Enterprise. It's a great conversation, so let's head to that straight away. Michael Molenda, welcome back to the Guitar Speak podcast.
I love talking to you guys. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Now, last time we spoke, Michael, was in March 2017, which, of course, marked your 20th year at Guitar Player and the 50th year of Guitar Player as a publication. In late 2018, we speak under slightly different circumstances. Do you want to talk through what happened when Future Publishing took on Nubia Media, who was the publisher of Guitar Player?
Yeah, well, I think everything seemed... You always are a little bit nervous when your company gets... because, you know, everybody could get their walking tours. But Future seemed like in these brands, we believe in print. You know, we know you had some frustrations with Nubia Media. What can we do to help? And then a few weeks after that, everything just kind of went completely upside down, and they pretty much, I think they laid off like 50 people, including me and Paul Haggard, who was a longtime art director. Pretty much the entire staffs of all the California publications. Anyone who wasn't a freelancer, who had a full-time salary, was kind of shown the door.
Wow, that's big.
So that was a little, yeah, it was, and you know, and this affected Guitar World too. You know, the editor of Guitar World got let go. And there was just a lot of shuffling. And I mean, I get it. It was a cost-cutting move, which, you know, we hear a lot these days in the States. But it was strange. I mean, I felt bad about it because I kind of got the call when I was in Poland at this Jimi Hendrix festival, and you know, I thought it was just me, you know, which sucks. But the next day when my phone started blowing up and everybody else started saying, well, you know, what happened? I got shown the door. I got shown the door. I'm like, oh my God, this is like a mass killing going on here. So I actually felt worse about that.
For sure. I mean, that's a huge thing, and it's not a new thing when companies get acquired, but of course when it happens to you and people you've worked with a long time, obviously that's a really hard deal. Yeah,
and you know, it was a little weird, you know, the topsy-turviness of it. You know, I mean they could have just said, hey, we don't know what we're going to do, you know, let us look at the financials, let us figure things out, and you know, everything's normal, but you know, let's get back to when we kind of know what the future will hold. And then everybody could have kind of went, well, okay, you know, this could end badly for us, but you know, it was kind of interesting in that quote unquote interesting way that they kind of made it look like everything was going to be fine. You know, we're going to help you guys out, and you know, since then, I don't really have any complaints how they treated me. I've done a few articles for guitar players since being let go, but it just marked a kind of a sea change in at least our publishing company, because it just everything, cost cutting just became the thing. And I mean, the person who's editing Guitar Player now isn't even a full-time editor, which makes me feel like I guess I was a slacker if I had to do it full-time as a job.
I don't know about
maybe
that.
Maybe I should have done it part-time and had a couple other jobs, but it just shows how much it becomes a different thing, because the people that are leading it are not so much about the community of guitarists that I served for 20 plus years, or that the community that served Bass Player magazine or Electronic Musician or Keyboard, or for that Guitar World, even though Guitar World seems to be Nubia Media, and the people that own Guitar World or Nubia Media invested pretty heavily in digital, so they've got a pretty pretty great community of YouTube views and Facebook, and so I think they're being funded okay. But the California books, Guitar Player, like I mentioned, Keyboard, Bass Player, and Electronic Musician, are just I don't want to sound like a whiny person who got shown the door and is now tossing mud at the company that laid him off, but it's for the California magazines, Guitar Player, Bass Player, Electronic Musician, and Keyboard, it's just not what it was. I guess I could just say that
Sure.
It is the level of attention that the editors paid to those magazines, the level of resources that they had to serve the communities that they served, has just been cut pretty significantly. So I guess we'll see what the future holds.
Yeah, it's interesting from an outside perspective. I mean, incredibly sad as well. But when we spoke again March last year, we were talking about the idea of digital medias and what does that mean for print organisations and the shifting sand there, and when other companies take on these things. So I guess it's a pretty sad but accurate picture of what can happen in that world at the moment.
Yep. Time marches on. I probably should have gone into pharmacology or something like that.
Michael, one thing I miss, and friends of mine who are GP readers miss, are your editorial columns. Now, very often those editorials include like a call to arms, for guitar players to try new things, or to stir up a passion, or approach something differently, or to evangelize the guitar. And it's interesting. It looks like you've taken your own advice from those columns, and you've jumped into some other projects. I saw you got involved in some A&R work. Is that still going on?
That's still going on. That was a really nice thing that a good friend did for me. Ted Mason, who used to be having a senior moment. He used to be in the band that I'll Stop the World and Melt with You. Who are those guys? Do you remember them?
I don't remember those guys. I'm sorry.
Okay. All right. Well, this is crashing and burning. But he started a label called MI5, which is under the Universal Music Group auspices, and he works out of New York, and the New York office, not surprisingly, does a lot of urban stuff and things like that. But he reached out and said, well, why don't you try, being a VP of international guitar instrumentals in California or West Coast rock and roll. So, once again, it's not anything that's going to have me go out and buy a mansion or drive my favorite Jaguar around, but it was nice of him to give me something to do, so I didn't feel completely shattered by losing a job that had been part of my life for 20 years.
Sure,
and so it does give me the opportunity to go out and give guitar instrumentalists a chance to reach a larger audience, which is awesome. It also gives me a chance if I hear some rock bands, because I'm still into
singing and rock and roll and good songs and all that kind of stuff. So also gives me an opportunity to look around for people, in bands like that, see if I can bring them to a larger audience. So I'm really jazzed about that. I don't have anybody coming to the forefront yet, but I'm definitely keep my eyes open.
Yeah, cool. Very cool. So are there any releases we should look out for, or is that what you mean? You're still keeping your eyes open for new stuff?
It's an interesting thing because, you look at the contracts that, the label is putting out, and, I want to be fair to everybody. And quite frankly, Ted and MI5 wants to be fair to everybody too. So, there's been a process of trying to get the contracts to a point where, I'm happy with them, and the artists are happy with them, and Universal's happy with them, and Ted's happy with them. So that's taken a bit of time. But I mean, there are some exciting things. I know everybody says this, which is frustrating because I wish I could just tell you what's happening, but I don't want to say any confidence until things happen. But there are some significant instrumental guitar players who are looking to come on board. So hopefully I'll be able to announce that, in the new year.
Yeah, fantastic. And the instrumental guitar, if you dig a little bit under the mainstream surface, there's a lot of that going on. And from here, I'm seeing through the, even the prog scene, Animals as leaders, and Pliny, the Australian guitar player, doing some great stuff around the world. So, it's still alive and well, that scene, even if it's not totally visible on your commercial sort of outlets. So that sounds cool.
Yeah, well, they're not looking for me to bring them hits. I mean, it was nice of Ted to go, let's use your reputation of what you've done, just to bring incredible artists, which, I mean, that's so nice of him to say. And it's something that I would want to do. Because, I mean, as everything I've evangelized and supported throughout my guitar player years. And I mean, I want to go after interesting people, whether they're 75 years old or, a 7-year-old, alien who can play guitar like crazy. I want to promote female guitarists more. I want to, promote people with interesting ideas and not just, shredding. I don't have anything against that, but there's other labels that put that stuff out. So I'd kind of like, what I bring to the fore to be something either melodic or really, really strange. So that's and an equal amount of male and female signings, just to try to not be so focused on guys. Much as I'm a guy myself, I love guy guitar players, but I think it's time that we also promoted some of the hot female guitar players, and I mean hot performance-wise.
Of course, yeah.
So yeah, this is a good opportunity for me.
Definitely. Well, that might lead us to Guardians of Guitar now. When I saw this, I got very excited, like a lot of people, not because we knew what you were doing, but we just saw you were doing something, and we thought, yeah, let's sign on and see what happens. So I think my first contact, I saw a Facebook post that you're starting up this Guardians of Guitar. What's that all about? Tell us, what's your vision with this?
Well, after getting kicked out of GP, I had to kind of sit down and reassess where I kind of was, because, it was interesting when that happened, and I was really gratified, and it made me feel, so nice that so many people came out and said, "Hey man, don't worry about it. You're going to get a job in 5 minutes. Everybody in the industry, blah, blah, blah." But, things are tough right now. And to be honest with you, the phone really didn't ring. So I'm flipping out going, geez, should I go work for Amazon? Should I try to work for Apple? And then I calmed down a bit and just said, had a kind of conversation with myself that I've been so lucky my entire life that I've pretty much been able to do things that brought me joy, things that I really enjoyed, rather than just put, money on the table to buy, food or pay for the house or whatever. And, that doesn't happen to everybody. And I kind of had to realize that, well, once again, I just been incredibly lucky that I've had this kind of life. So I kind of reasserted my joy, so to speak. It sounds like I'm being a hippie now, and what do I really want to do with the third phase of my working career? And I don't think it's writing technical manuals for, the latest software company or whatever.
Mm-hmm, sure.
Now, to be honest with, you and your community, I still need a full-time job, but I also looked at just doing some freelance work for Guitar Player and seeing where that was going. And, I'm not saying it's wrong or it's bad, but it's different than when I was there. And the community of people that I served, they kind of know it's different too. No, they may not know it's different enough to no longer subscribe to the magazine or no longer pay attention to it, but they know that something's changed. That the charity aspect that I was always, a huge proponent of is gone. Yeah. It's GP really launching any charity initiatives in the future. The budgets are just too tight. I don't see them reaching out and promoting, new players or young players. Once again, you look at the magazine, they're pretty much sticking to the, let's hit the mainstream cats up.
Yeah, yeah.
And I just felt, all right, well, if anybody does, give a crap about what I stood for there, and, maybe I should just do that again somewhere else. And hopefully some of that community who enjoyed and, not just me, but enjoyed what we all did at Guitar Player, from Art Thompson, Matt Blackett, Barry Cleveland, all the way, all the great editors that have been there, and freelancers, Jimmy Leslie and so on, to have a home where we could kind of all be and do the things that we always wanted to do. So that came up with the Guardians of Guitar idea, which is basically a content website. It's nothing new or innovative. It's just me kind of doing the same thing you mentioned earlier, me doing the editorials, me looking for new artists to promote, me looking for, charity things to embrace and bring to people, and just evangelize guitar playing as strongly as I can, because I'm not trying to sell anything to anybody, anymore. I'm out of that corporate life, and although it would be great if Guardians of Guitar got some advertising to promote it, I'm going to do it full on Molenda, whether I get a buck to keep the thing going or not. Uh-huh. So it's really a pure location for me to bring the editors and writers that I trust and respect to do the kind of things that, I guess unfettered, I can talk about women. I can talk about 17-year-olds. I could talk about Joe Satriani. I could do whatever I want to do, and I can continue to, as you said earlier so nicely, kind of push people in directions, that they might not have considered, or that they might have been afraid to go, and just kind of be that cheerleader that, hey, we can all do this together. No different than what I did at Guitar Player, but, once again, I'm being kind of redundant here, but this is an unfettered place for me to do this without any interference or worries about commerciality at all. I can speak directly to those people that have followed me in the magazine for 20 years without fear of any kind of, censorship's too hard a word, but I think you know what I mean.
Yeah,
I'm
speaking
Italian now. I'm just blathering.
This is awesome. This reminds me of something kind of special. After our interview last year, we sort of wrapped things up, and one of the last things you said to me was, you just really encouraged me to value my independence for this podcast, and don't sell that off cheaply. And it's interesting, you talk about being unfettered by any commercial kind of restraints. So I guess you've already answered, but I'm just wondering, how does that advice now apply back to you, or what sort of things can you do that you perhaps couldn't do at GP?
I think that just talking to the publisher who hired me back in '97, Ross Garnick, and he said that it's interesting because what kind of happened to everybody, a guitar player, what happened to the guitar publishing industry, it was kind of presaging what is happening in America, politically and culturally about corporations kind of ruling the world. And not that that's a surprise. I think if you go back to the robber barons of the 1800s, the wealthy have always kind of set the tone for where we're going, But when I first started in this industry, if a product, let's say, wasn't awesome, you just said, okay, it's not awesome because of these reasons, and you didn't have to be mean about it. We did things like shootouts where we would compare one guitar to another guitar, one amp to another amp.
Yeah, I remember those well.
And it's not like that didn't cause any consternation on the part of the manufacturers, but they were okay with it because we could say, we have this audience, and even if even a little bit of bad press is better than no press at all. But as things started changing and the manufacturers got stronger and could kind of look at the magazines and say, hey, we're going to pull our ads for 2 months or a year or whatever if you give us a crappy review. Then things kind of turned around, and that was a huge sea change and a concern for me. Now, I have to say that nobody at Guitar Player ever lied about a product or said it was good if it didn't. But there were some instances where if something really got a bad review, we just didn't review it. If you can't say something nice about something, don't say anything at all.
Sure.
If we said if we had some concerns about a product and the manufacturer got really tough with the sales team about that, we would still say it, but it might be muted somewhat. I would always say to the manufacturers, hey, with the digital era and news groups and peer sites and all this, and just people talking on Facebook, it's like if your switch doesn't work and I don't mention that, or I say it works okay, then Guitar Player is going to be resoundingly slaughtered for not telling the truth. You can't, if your switch doesn't work, you can't hide from that. I mean, you could sit there and lord over Guitar Player and threaten to pull your ads, and maybe we make some accommodation because of that, but the word is still going to get out that it's getting out there by a small website, or it's getting out there by a small news group, and it's not going to be as big as Guitar Player. As we both know, those resonances, don't quiet down. So I think when it comes to the independence thing, is for Guardians of Guitar, I'm not going to take ads from the big peeps or the little peeps. So if my community or our community, hey, it would be really awesome if there was a shootout between this pedal and that pedal, or if it was a shootout between new semi-hollow guitars, what's the best? I mean, once again, we get back to that unfettered thing. I can really say what works and doesn't work for certain types of players. I mean, it's funny because sometimes I'd be sitting around at a gig or something and somebody would say, oh man, you guys are in the pockets of the manufacturers and you don't say anything bad about anything. And I would say, well, manufacturing today is pretty awesome. It's not like it was when I started playing guitar in the late 60s, early 70s, when, my first guitar was an absolute piece of crap. It should have thrown into a fireplace and burned up and never had anybody play it. But today, that's really bad. All you can really do is say, for this type of player or that type of player, it might work or not work. But, even then, when you talk about advertising and the strength of that, things could maybe get a little bit weird. It's like, do you have to say that? Can you say it this way? And I kind of regretted all those little gymnastics. And once again, I know I'm blathering on, but we never lied to the public, but it wasn't as explicit as I would like it to be. And we were absolutely told that we could not do shootouts anymore because it was just asking for trouble. You compare one product to another product and the product wins.
Yeah.
That's bad for commerce. And as the Fenders and Gibsons and Korg USAs and Marshall amps, develop their own communities with their own websites and digital communities, they less and less needed magazines like Guitar Player or Guitar World or Guitarist UK or whatever. And their influence became kind of heavy, not dictatorial heavy or not scary horror movie heavy, but you definitely knew if you cut the manufacturers too deep, you might be losing a few $1,000s worth of ad revenue.
Yeah, there's that tension, isn't there? And yet at the same time, there is a very visible independent movement. If you're interested in a piece of gear and you Google it, you'll find the manufacturer's blurb and their glowing review of it. But you'll find a million, talk boards or whatever we call them these days, online forums, when people will tell you the truth about that dodgy switch or whatever it is. So I guess the upside of this digital age is that there is that whole independent sector which will just ruthlessly talk about how this gear works on a gig or in a real world situation.
Yeah, and I'm not really interested in, it's not like Guardians of Guitar that I'm going, ooh, now I can get back at
sure. Yeah.
If you slap me on the hand 5 or 10 years ago, I'm going to get you now. It's not about that. And I think sometimes it's not even about reviews. I think education is still huge, and I think how we use these tools and sharing different ideas about how to use these tools is really important. So I'm not even necessarily going to look at reviewing products as well, this sucks or that sucks. I mean, obviously, if it does, you have to say that. But I think it's going to be more about how you can deploy this tool in an interesting and meaningful way for whatever style of music you're playing. I think that's more important than just saying, hey, the switch sucks, or whatever.
For sure. Hey, I see you've already interviewed some really great players. I think you mentioned you spoke to Richard Thompson and Nita Strauss, just to mention a couple. So that's a couple of great things to look forward to.
Yeah, the Richard Thompson interview was actually something I did for Guitar Player for a cover story that's coming up. But I had a lot of data from him, obviously, that couldn't fit in the Guitar Player story. So I will definitely use that for Guardians. And for Nita, that was a Guardians review, which was great. I mean, she's awesome. She was very appreciative of the coverage that we gave her or I helped give her at GP, and she didn't really care that if I was doing it for Guitar Player or not. She wanted to do something for Guardians, which was awesome.
That's great. Nice. I won't be surprised if a lot of this reciprocal stuff happens. People that you've really helped and lifted up at GP. I very much doubt that that you won't see a lot of that coming in. I think that's really cool.
Yeah, I hope so. But, then again, I always thought that, I'd get at least 17.3 phone calls about a new job. So I never take that for granted.
Well, that's wise as well, I guess. Now, I am very excited because obviously in all your work, I've seen a lot of integrity, and now to see you do it, yeah, like you said, freely in your own space, I think is great. What's the timeline? You talk about a website coming? I
think it would be awesome if I could get it completely up by January 2019. Hopefully before the U.S. NAMM show. So.
Oh yeah, great.
Because that's coming up the middle of January 2019. It would be great to, have it up before then. Once again, not because I'm going to be looking for advertising, but there's a bunch of new gear and things that I'd like to, take a look at and share with readers, and also just kind of reconnect with people so they know that I didn't, die in a horrible train accident or something.
Yeah, that's good too.
I'm still around something.
Absolutely, that's awesome. That's so cool. So, January 2019, hopefully. What's the best way for people to sort of jump on board now and keep up to date?
Well, there is I did kind of do a soft launch on the social stuff. So there is a Guardians of Guitar Facebook page, Twitter page, and Instagram site. People can just kind of email me at mike@guardiansofguitar.com. I'm definitely open to covering anyone and everyone. There's room for everybody. So if you have a cool video, or you think you have a cool story about, your guitar playing, then, feel free to get a hold of me that way. And also, as we discussed earlier, I do have this label. So not only can I do articles and help promote new artists or old artists or enduring artists, but I can also put stuff out into the mainstream if something seems great, and an artist and I could come to terms about the contracts and all that. I mean, I just have an amazing opportunity to just promote playing on so many different levels.
Awesome, man, and that's right in your ballpark. So I'm so pleased you're still engaged in that way, and if anything, given a new lease on that. Can I ask you two more questions? Slightly left of this. How is your band going? Trouble with Monkeys.
Well, we just played. It's going great. I want to kind of upgrade it for 2019, but it's a struggle when A, your wife's in the band, B, a couple people have full-time jobs. So
Sure.
I always get all like, oh, we could do this. We could play some casinos. We can tour California. We could play a cruise. So I don't know how much of that stuff I'm going to be able to do, just because everyone has lives. Damn them. They should be committed to the Monkeys 24/7.
That's it.
But but we do have we have a record I'm putting out next year, which is 6 Monkey songs done our way, and 3 original songs. So that's kind of exciting.
Oh, right.
And I guess even you talked about this with your community, that one of the things that kind of helped with the Monkeys record was that nobody wants to license or wants to avoid licensing original masters these days because it's so expensive. And also sometimes a movie or a ad company or a TV show won't want the same old. So doing covers that are different than the original tracks, and that are a little stranger than the original tracks, there's actually a market for licensing there, which I never would have known until I started talking about doing this record.
Nice. And if people don't know, Trouble with Monkeys is Michael's really, I guess, amped up, slightly punked up version of Monkey songs, which is great. How did you know you guys were writing originals too? That's pretty cool.
Well, once again, the label, which is also MI5 deal out of that too, in addition to working for them, which was great. They were very embracive and just said, we love how these Monkeys songs sound, but it'd be also nice to hear, your own voice. So, it's a little weird from a marketing standpoint. Like, I don't really know, hi, here's 6 Monkeys songs done kind of punked and rocked up. And here's 3 songs by, guys that you've never heard of, that have nothing to do with the Monkeys. But I'm grateful for the opportunity to flex my writing muscles a little bit. And I know everybody puts a record that say they're excited about it, but kind of having to think about writing and all that stuff, and then being able to, and playing in a band is awesome, but it's not like making a record, as you well know. So,
Sure.
having to kind of, do what a lot of my readers and what a lot of your listeners have done is really buckle down and, figure out what makes a great recording. And it's right in front of you. You're not talking about it anymore from a theoretical standpoint. It's like, the deadline's coming, and you've got to actually figure out how you can make the best record you can make. That kind of kicks your butt.
Absolutely. What over some guitar nerdy, what rig are you using for this stuff?
I'm using the 76 Les Paul Heritage that was like my first real guitar that I bought, in 76.
Awesome.
I'm using that Gretsch Electromatic that I kind of converted into a fake Monkees guitar with the Monkees logo pick guard and things like that. I've got, I've been using that Reeves Gabrel's, the Reverend Reeves Gabrel's Dirt Bike, which is a single pickup
that
guitar,
looks super cool,
with the Wilkinson tremolo.
Mm-hmm.
And that, man, because they got that contour switch on those Reverends that and although it's one pickup, it's pretty versatile, and it's, the neck is faster than I can go, which is always good, and the Wilkinson's interesting. I mean, it's kind of made me, I have to kind of keep my hands off it, or else everything will be like whammy there every 2 seconds. It's pretty bad.
You're not alone.
And I think my Collings 290, and then it's fairly simple with the amps. I've just either used the Vox, or I've just used some software stuff. The producer Jerry Stucker, I actually don't know what he was plugging me into. It might have been a Sans amp plugin or something like that. It was probably a Sans amp.
Uh-huh.
And at first it's kind of I think we just need to mic amps up. I want to kind of keep that 60s vibe going, but plugging into the plugin was pretty awesome too. I didn't feel like I was giving anything away, or I mean, once again, it's so funny because as editor or guitar player, I said, you shouldn't care about what you plug into. You should you make sure the idea you want to get across, exactly what you want to get across. And then I'm sitting there doing this myself for this record, getting all paranoid and freaked out and going, gee, I don't know. It's just funny.
Yeah, sure. Although, as you would always, talk up something that actually worked, so whatever road got you to a great tone. I think you're always into that kind of thing too. And as a studio guy, with your background, if you can pragmatically pull a great tone and make it an easier path, that's all cool too.
Yeah, but sometimes, like when you do this yourself, I'm sure. I mean, maybe you're confident. I'm kind of. I mean, everybody thinks I'm confident, but I'm kind of one of those guys that's always, I feel like I'm always 2 steps away from making the worst mistake of my life. So it is interesting. I'll just sit there and go, oh God, was that Ben really in tune? Is that tone really back? Am I really doing what I should be doing? I mean, it's really. I'll have to write a editor's note to myself not to get so wrapped up in my own head.
Yeah,
Stop
sure.
it, Mike.
Yeah. Do that. I reckon I think there's probably some past editorials exactly like that you could draw on.
I'm sure you're right. I'll have to reread them.
Definitely.
But I'll send you the tracks when you're done. You can.
Yeah, I'd love to hear them.
Have a listen to it.
That'd be awesome. That would be really cool. Man, thank you for speaking so candidly. Can I ask you one final question? And this might relate to music, or it might relate to anything. What's your advice to people facing a sea change as you have? What's your advice to people for people to move forward from that?
Well, the funny thing was, this is going to sound really. It's funny you asked that question because I've been thinking about that a lot. And what's also going to be kind of funny is I was reading William Shatner's latest book.
Yes.
And it was interesting because he said, yeah, I've been around for 80 something years and I can't really say that I have any knowledge about anything that would help anybody do anything. I can only say what worked for me. Reading this book from Shatner, as he said, he's been around for 80 years, and people ask him, well, how do I do this, or how to what's the best thing to become an actor or live a good life or whatever? And he said, I don't really know. I'm still learning myself, but I can only say what worked for me. And one of the things that he said worked for him was just saying yes to everything. And I thought that, although that sounds a little bit like a hippie thing, I thought it was a marvelous thing, especially looking at my sea change. It's like, the opportunities present themselves. You should just say yes. You shouldn't be fearful. You shouldn't have any trepidation. You shouldn't, drive yourself crazy going, is this a good move or a bad move? Let me do my A, B, and C, arguments about, what should I do? And I just thought that was amazing. And especially, people will say we have to learn new skills now. There's certain gigs that, in journalism especially, where technology has changed it, and it's probably not going to go back to what it was. And I know a fair amount of fellow journalists who just haven't been able to make the change to social networking or things like that. And as a result, we've kind of lost the benefit of their intelligence and their writing chops and their view of the world, because they're just not doing, they lost their jobs. I know a lot of people that went to school with, who worked for newspapers, who were just laid off as well. And they just stopped because they didn't want to learn the new thing. And I think that's a tragedy. Whether you're a writer and now you have to learn how to use Twitter, or whether you're a guitar player who is looking at the way the music industry is today, and do I have to do a YouTube video to get an audience? And I don't know if I want to do that. I don't know if I want to comb my hair or put on a nice shirt or whatever. I think that you can't stop progress. All you can do is manage your relationship with how the future is moving you. So once again, back to Captain Kirk, I just think that, I'm just saying yes. I'm saying yes to social networking. I'm saying yes to the way the world works today. I just don't want to quiet myself down or get cranky or go, hey, it's not the way I learned, so I don't want to be a part of this anymore. I think all we can do is say, shit changed, and I'm going to change with it. I'm still going to be me. I'm just going to be me in a different direction. So I think that's the only advice I can give to anybody, is not to get bummed out about where things are going, because, man, that's not anybody's fault. The world changes, and we have to, it's like that adapt or shut up thing. Did that make any sense at all?
Absolutely. No, that's great. And I guess, like I've already said, I'm really excited that you're still going to be you, but just in a slightly different space. And really looking forward to what next year brings. It looks like it's going to be an exciting year for you and all of us in this guitar community you speak of. So, Michael, thank you so much for speaking to me again. Thank you for saying yes when I emailed you. And
of course. And thanks. I really appreciate you reaching out, and even and like I said, I never take anything for granted. And I just really appreciate you reaching out and wanting to hear this story of what's happening next with me. So thank you very much, and thank you to all your listeners. I really appreciate it.
All right, there you go. My conversation with Mike Molenda. Always love speaking to him. And the links to Guardians of Guitar social media and the website itself will be found in our show notes. I can't encourage you enough to like or follow those pages. And then when the site launches in full, you'll be right up to date with that. Okay, it's almost time for me to go. Before I go though, remember we are on Facebook and Instagram. You can subscribe to this show on Apple Podcasts, or we're now on Spotify or Stitcher Radio or heaps of other places. Head to guitarspeakpodcast.libsyn.com and there's all the options there for you to chase up. Thanks again for 100 episodes, for sticking with me. I'm going to jam out. My name's Matt Wakeling. You've been listening to the Guitar Speak podcast, and I'll catch you next time. Bye now.